Hey there, everyone. It's Amy from the Creative Confidence Catch-Up here. Welcome to the podcast that's designed to inspire, motivate, and encourage you no matter where you are in your creative journey. Join us as we share insights, stories, and triumphs of individuals who have harnessed their creative confidence from discovering your unique voice to overcoming creative blocks. We'll delve into strategies to overcome any self-doubt you may have that can help propel you forward. So in today's Creative Confidence Catch-Up, today I'm going to be talking to Mark Bailey. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi Amy, yeah, I'm Mark. I'm 33 and from Staffordshire, Stoke-on-Trent, Staffordshire. Yeah.
So in terms of how we got talking, I suppose it was through the music, wasn't it? And it seemed like at the time you were really confident out there doing your thing. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So been in bands for the last 12, 13 years. COVID happened, so I decided to do a bit of solo music. And I was enjoying it, I suppose, at the start. Yeah, and then I think it just got a bit too saturating. Whether COVID had an impact on that, I don't know. We've not been able to gig that much, but I think I just overdid it slightly, shall we say, and it just became a bit of a chore rather than an enjoyment.
Do you feel like the expectation of other people might have got in the way, like social media? How did you find all of that, like trying to keep up with being present, I suppose, on socials and things?
Yeah, I do. It's it's a saturated market, isn't it, as well, with me. Well, a lot of the arts, whether that's music, writing, any creative venture, if you like, is quite saturated. So I think it is a bit, I don't know if you lack the tools as well. So I don't really know if I had the right. Basically, I didn't really have an idea of how to do social media really, and also the tools. So, say for example, if you wanted to upload it like a video or something, I think at times I maybe did overthink that and stuff, like with the quality of like the sound and stuff, and then you doubt yourself before you posted it, and you think, does that look okay? Does it sound okay and stuff? And then I think it just becomes that overwhelming. You just get to a point where you're like, I can't be bothered with this anymore. Like it's too much of a hassle to. There's too many things involved, and then that then strips away the whole reason why you do it in the first place, which is out of enjoyment.
Yeah, that's so true. So in terms of like the creativity and obviously the overwhelm, the all of the stress from the music, what can you tell us a bit about the story of just recently and the ADHD diagnosis?
Yeah, so I think it was about 18 months ago. It was my partner who suggested it that that I show a lot of signs of ADHD, which prompted me to begin, I suppose, the journey of, diagnosis, speaking to somebody first, getting a diagnosis, and then subsequent treatment, which was a very, very drawn out, long process. I think statistically as well, I've read up on that as well, that it is a lot of the time, particularly in males, that the partner actually recognises it and prompts males to then go on to it. Yeah, I read quite an interesting article about it. And I think with it being, attitudes and I suppose education with ADHD, I think people think instantly of this, somebody crawling the walls and like, running around a bit. I don't know. I think, we all have a stereotypical image or idea of anything, and I think ADHD is very much like that. So when the journey began with me, I started reading up about it, obviously, and it's unbelievable, really, how much more it is than that. So I think the NHS was obviously a very difficult ride. I quickly found out that was almost a no-go thing for me, because I think it was a pressing issue as well. It was affecting my life to the point where, in terms of mental health, productivity, all the behaviours that come into it, comorbidity, so like, anxiety or feeling low self-esteem, all the rest of it like that. So it was a pressing issue. So I ended up having private diagnosis, which again, I do feel privileged in the fact that I was able to do that. It involved we remortgaged a house around the time, actually, so it fell in quite well, so there was a bit of money there to use for it again, which was lucky. So yeah, once I'd done that, things quickened up with it being a private service, got the diagnosis, and then treatment was discussed. So I opted for medication, which I know some people prefer not to. But since I've started medication, I think I'm 5 months into it now with medication, and yeah, it's completely and utterly changed my life, unbelievably. Because I think even at the point when I was going down that route, I was still a bit skeptical about it, whether I even had it. And you go on the lists on Google, don't you, self-diagnose and things like
Yeah.
that, and you think, well, I do that, I don't do that, I do that, but you still just dismiss it, I suppose.
Mm.
Since then, other things that were recommended by the psychiatrist, such as like mindfulness, well-being, reflection, stuff that 18 months ago, well, even less than that, I wouldn't have. I'd probably laughed, if I'm honest. I'd probably laughed if somebody suggested me that. But that, along with a few other issues that I had at the time, have all seemed to come together now. And yeah, it's unbelievable. Life is massively different as a result.
That's amazing. So do you find, like, in terms of the pandemic, if we hadn't gone through the pandemic, or even through being creative as such, like through the music, do you think that you might not have even come across, like, even thought about seeking a diagnosis for ADHD, or do you think it would have come about anyway?
Possibly. It's hard to say, because obviously the pandemic obviously threw us all into
Mm.
a massive different situation, whereby whoever you were living with at the time, you spent a lot more time with. But I'm not so sure, because I was displaying, and my partner had also mentioned it before that as well.
Right.
So maybe it contributed slightly more, to go down that route. And creativity, possibly, yeah, because I think it was the performance aspect of it. I think that maybe institutionalized everything, because obviously you were limited on what you could do. So it was a lot of, well, I suppose the emphasis was on social media, because that was the only outlet really that you had. So yeah, definitely in terms of creativity musically, I think that did have an impact for everyone, musicians. Yeah, so it would have done. Yeah.
Mm, awesome. So in terms of, like, obviously getting diagnoses, and also just building self-confidence as to where you are at the moment, etc. Um, who would you say would have been the community that helped supported you throughout that process?
So I think what I've realised is, I think, and again, I think it's the old. Well, it almost has become cliche, hasn't it, with mental health and
Mm-hmm.
things. Yes, it's absolutely, we're miles ahead compared to 5, 10, 15
Yeah.
years ago, 20 years ago. But I do think at times, I think, and again, to bring males into it as well, because obviously, um, I think with males, it's the old issue of trying to get males to talk and open up. And
Mm-hmm.
I think particularly if your environment is a very sort of closed, if your friendship circle is, or your family and your general upbringing is very much, you just sort of, that horrible phrase, that keep calm and carry on, and that, and in certain communities where you don't really feel well, in all honesty, for some people it's just not an option, because of the response that you get, or lack of, or the ridicule, etc. So I feel like one thing that this has taught me is the vulnerability. Vulnerability is, what's the word? Vulnerability can be empowering
Oh
if
yeah,
it's looked
definitely.
at
I
in
agree.
a certain way, and you are willing to confront it. So I think that, then linking to your question there with community, I think it is out there. It is out there, and it is true what they say when, if it's okay not to be okay, and support is out there. Not necessarily. Obviously, again, going back to the NHS, not to bring that up, and the huge pressures that they're under, I feel like some people, me included, have had experiences where it's almost cemented that help actually isn't, because certain experiences for myself initially with the ADHD and other issues, it was met with almost just very dismissive. But again, I understand that that's because of time issues. There's not enough, funding. I understand that the people who are there to help are under massive, massive pressure. So it's a vicious circle in
Yeah.
that respect. But then if you reach out to friendship circles, family, and open up and talk, it's so surprising. So on this journey that I've gone so far, like the amount of people that I've spoken to, whether it be a social media post, like a subtle post on social media, someone will message and they'll say, oh, I'm experiencing something similar. And then that's gone on to, you meet up for coffee. And so that's the way in terms of the community. And then it's like the other week I went to the Be Arts in Hartshill and Stoke, and they
Always.
did the recovery exhibition. And it was
Yes,
just
yes.
there. I took me little girls with me and stuff, and it was just that community. And you realise these things are out there. They are out there. It's just, I suppose, we have a responsibility ourselves as well. It is tough and it's very difficult, but it's finding that balance between finding the confidence and the guts to start it off, I think. And if you do, Luke, there's plenty out there for support.
I suppose as well, it's like kind of breaking the stigma and talking about it. Like you said, yeah, builds your confidence. And when you have the support, the community around you, it's then you can be who you want to be because there's no
Exactly.
expectation, is there?
That's it. And it's when you start it's that the idea, particularly with ADHD as well, the mask slipping, and it's such again empowering. It's like it's unbelievable that when that mask slips and you can finally be like live authentically. I'm not completely there yet. There are moments even now, because I'm quite early on in the journey, but it's like, why didn't I do that? Or why didn't I say that? Was it, mainly because it's like expectations, societal expectations, community expectations, before, I suppose once you open up, and lay it all on the line, it's like you realise that actually, it's not as bad as you thought it was going to be, which is the same for a lot of things in life, really. You have this big sort of anxiety or overthinking and things like that, and it does take a lot of effort, and it takes everything you've got sometimes to discuss like delicate issues in particular. But you realize when you put it out there, it's almost like you've got this image of somebody, what they think of you, and you've built that up yourself. Like
Yeah.
it's very difficult, obviously, because that's the way your mind works, and if you're an overthinker, that's how it is. But when you actually step out and just do it, it is really empowering. Yeah, it's weird.
So in terms of creativity now then, I'm assuming you've stepped back a bit away from the music. And so in terms of creativity, we spoke previously about writing and journaling. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So that was that came from when I saw the psychiatrist. They recommended that as another tool, if you
Hmm.
like, and that was also a key thing with, because it was a sign of key workers is another issue, but with another issue to do with alcohol, and that they said that is one of the most effective things. Now I've always been interested in like reading and writing things like that anyway, so that was naturally one of the first things that I tried. And again, that's another thing that such a simple thing, but again, it's that emphasis on you, it's emphasis on the person themselves to do it. So it's almost like fitting that. It can even be just 2 minutes of your day. And what's 2 minutes when a lot of the time, not all people, but like you find yourself like just scrolling aimlessly through social media, that can be used to do something like. So I brought a notebook for like £4 and a pen, and yeah, so every day, even now, still just do that. Whenever as well. So if you just carry it with you, and obviously with your phone, and I've just said about technology, but the notes app and your phone as well. So if you
I
haven't got
have
your pen
loads
and
of notes.
paper, same, not just for organizational purposes, but even if it is just a sentence, a paragraph. Other days it might be, if you're having a bad day, it might be paragraphs. Even if you're having a good day as well, it might be paragraphs. But there's this scientific thing behind it, or psychological thing, where it unlocks your unconscious as well, which I didn't even realize. So, if you're, let's say, like overthinking an issue, so obviously CBT comes into this, and you assess it outside looking in, and also this technique of writing to somebody. So for instance, one of my daughters or my son, I could pretend that they're in that situation and I'm guiding them. So it's almost like, well, if you're giving that advice, start following it yourself, and it really helps. But again, it's something so simple that you'd never think would work, but it does. It's really helpful. Yeah,
It's a bit like that, like talk to yourself as you would a friend or a relative, and it
that's
is
yeah.
trying to. It's hard, isn't it? Because I suppose
It
it's
is.
easier said than done. But I suppose when you take those steps, and I suppose it's taking accountability for yourself. So do this, because if you don't do that, then you're not going to help yourself in a way, maybe.
You're right. It's like this today. So obviously I knew we had the meeting scheduled, and I've also been for a blood test. So all day at work today, it's mad. So all day today, it's almost like at times I couldn't do what I needed to do at work because I've got to go for this blood test, then I've got to speak. But it's like you're making a massive deal. I've been for the blood test. It took like 5 minutes, and then we're doing this. I'm enjoying it, and it's like what was the issue? So later tonight, I'll be thinking, why did I make such a big deal of that? But again, it's just sometimes how your mind works.
Yeah, it is how it is. It's sometimes like something that, I don't know, like if it seems at the time a big thing, it gets blown out of proportion and it gets even more massive. But that's just, I suppose it can happen, can't it? But if we don't like kind of take action on these things and tell ourselves it will be okay, even though it's, being comfortable with the uncomfortable sort of thing.
That's
and
it.
And putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations sometimes makes you more comfortable. And it's a weird one, but I do find it's true.
It is, and that links in. I watched this thing on Netflix called Stutz. I don't know if you've seen it. It's Jonah Hill and his psychiatrist. He's absolutely unbelievable, and he gives loads of little techniques which are related to everything that we're speaking about here. And that's one of them. I can't remember off the top of my head what it's called, but there's this theory that the psychiatrist gives about uncomfortable. There's 3 things, and I can't remember typically what they were, but one of them is that every single human being, there'll always be some sort of struggle, and obviously that struggle is different for each person, but even down to the fact of a meeting that you don't want to do at work, or like, an appointment that you don't want to do because you see it as an inconvenience, those things will never ever go away. It's just a part of life, and the way he describes it is it's how you see it, and it's your mindset, and we can retrain our brains and how we think. And again, that's something that before, when you're in a rut, I suppose, or you have an issue or a problem, particularly with mental health, I think it's almost like festers, doesn't it? And then it is a vicious cycle. It's difficult to break out of it. But I think as soon as you offer yourself up in a way, sort of thing, and you open your mind a bit more, that's when you start seeing progress.
Yeah, that does make sense. So like, as we come towards like this week's episode, I was wondering now, do you have any last bits of words of encouragement or wisdom, anything that might be inspiring to others, maybe?
I think that's the big one for me. The vulnerability is empowering, which is almost like paradoxical, because when you think about vulnerability, it's like sort of like opening up completely and stuff to people, one that you don't know, but arguably even more difficult to people that you do know. But I think once you've done that, and once you've I suppose opened yourself up to a point where there's nothing else really left to make you feel, what's the word? I'm not explaining it very well, but I suppose vulnerability is empowering because there's nothing else left to lose, almost, in that sense, once you're in that
because you put yourself out there.
Exactly, and then that's where the journey begins then, and you start seeing everything differently. Again, whether that's work, whether that's things that you do outside of work, your spare time, your family, your friends, you start, I think, appreciating the short-termness, I suppose, of life, and then you think, you sort of prioritize what's important.
Having gratitude for what you've already got, I suppose.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I love that. No, it's been really great to talk to you anyway today, Mark, and thank you ever so much for joining us.
No problem. Thanks, Amy.